Hello and welcome to Second Sunday, a broadcast that I do every second Sunday of the month. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Jessica Alstrom, and I am the creator of Transcendence International Consciousness Academy, which is an online university that basically navigates you back to channeling higher self and becoming and living as higher self. You can also find me right here on Facebook with my coaching forum, Quantum Life. I have about 5 different groups for everybody's different needs and wants. We have a community group that I am live in right now, which is a place for us to share just all of the messages that are coming through right now for the ascension and for the evolutionary phase of our lives here. And then I have my coaching forum that is a subscription group that is a hands-on kind of DIY group of coaching where I teach you guys how to basically navigate through your quantum journey. And I do a live question and answer in that group. I also channel a workshop every month in that group, a different workshop that is all archived in that community. We also have a tribe group, Quantum Life Tribe, which is for your experience, for you to put your magic, your teachings, your business, your interactions, and build a foundation of non-judgmental, tribe-like communication. So we've got those 3 active groups, and then we've got some virtual private classrooms that are linked with our university there. You can also find me on YouTube, and I don't know, I have a couple hundred videos on YouTube that we talk about everything quantum from the spiritual perspective and the scientific perspective, and we kind of try to bridge that gap and become kind of that clarification and that center point for you to be able to navigate your journey. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Alstrom, and I have some messages today. About maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a Facebook group post, a live video in my community about the quantum perspective of the border crisis. And that video disappeared. And so I thought, you know what, I've been wanting to do it again for the last couple of weeks. And seeing how we are right here on the 4th of July weekend, I thought, you know, Second Sunday lies here. It fits perfectly with the energetic message that I'm going to give you guys today. So I thought I would just kind of combine that particular video in with my Second Sunday message. And because, again, it all links in perfectly and it'll hopefully make sense. So my level of teaching is all about the quantum experience. So to me, what does quantum mean? It means all-inclusive. It also means nothing at all. So everything is true and everything is not true. Everything is and everything isn't. So to understand that you are basically living inside of a virtual reality dream that you are creating with your own consciousness and your own awareness and your own imagination and your own belief systems, you literally are in a bubble of your own reality constantly. So your viewpoint is going to be based on your experiences. That's why relationships can be so tricky, because you've got your perspective, someone else has their perspective, and you're kind of meeting in the middle to create this form of consciousness in the middle where you can agree on what you believe. Well, if we're going to talk about quantum mechanics and we're going to talk about law of attraction and law of reflection, well, then let's talk about America, since we are literally representing our time-space in the 4th of July weekend, which is the symbol of our independence. So if we were going to look back at what America stood for in the beginning, or at least the idea, the collective agreement of the United States in particular, it was freedom. And freedom is actually not defined maybe the way you might think it is, because you may feel like you have certain freedoms in your life. But when you look at the definition of freedom, it actually says act, think, behave, demonstrate, create your own truth. That's really what freedom is about. And when people moved to the United States, or took over the United States, however you want to think about it, as far as the idea of what they were going to utilize the United States for, it was to create freedom. That was the collective idea. Now, that wasn't really in alignment with how everything actually went down, because there was already a very strong collective in the United States that was already living in freedom. So it would make sense that the vibrational match of what people were trying to create from other places in the world came to the United States to create freedom, creative freedom, their own businesses, move away from, genocides and religious problems and, being able to expand and be their own person. So the United States actually represents the melting pot. It is the melting pot of the entire planet. And because of the way the United States is set up, now it is a focal point. It is the reality show of the rest of the world. So everything that goes on in the United States is projected outwardly. So the United States is actually kind of a macro of the micro of all other particles on the planet. So everybody is doing their own thing, and then part of that is all happening in the United States. And then we throw the media on there, we throw Hollywood on there, and everything gets really exaggerated with the United States. So quantumly, the United States represents the focal point of the collective. So what is going on in the collective can be really found in the United States. And if you look at what we're trying to clear collectively right now, is we're trying to clear all of our old karma, all of our old pain, all of our old suffering, all of our old injustice, all of the old genocide, all of the old slavery programs, all of the everything you can imagine that is happening here collectively is to be basically exposed. So this message is really for people who are on their quantum journey. And the reason why this message is for those on their quantum journey is because for you to really look at the reflective probabilities, the prophecy of the United States, and understand really what we are doing here as light workers, as empaths, as guides, as prophets, as storytellers, as artists, we have to understand that we are here to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So when we are acting afraid of our news, instead of looking at it as a reflection of the past, because the past is going to repeat. We're in quantum entanglement with every pain point that this planet has ever experienced. So if we're in a quantum entanglement with every genocide, every slavery point, every war, then everything continues to basically repeat through the genetics. And it repeats through Mother Earth herself, because everything needs to be cleared in order to be purified. And if you're all familiar with the ascension is basically the alchemy process of bringing our darkness to light. It is purification of the diamond, which is collectively the consciousness, the Christ consciousness that resides in your DNA. And I don't mean necessarily Christian. What I mean is the crystalline energy of your DNA. So with that, we have to understand that in order for us to understand what we are clearing, it has to be exposed. And so we use our astrology and we use all of these maps that the universal game gives us to basically navigate our way home. And in this particular time and space, we've got Chiron in retrograde, which is the wounded warrior. And we also have Mercury in retrograde. And anytime there's a retrograde, it is about a redo. It is about a recycle. It is about re-upping. It is about rewinding. It is about remembering. It is the re-process. So it is bringing everything up into the light, everything up. So when I talked about the border crisis, I talked about we need to look at everything quantumly, which is subatomically, which was at the beginning or the rooted process of any beginning of any cycle. And when we look at that quantumly, we can see that we can't solve a problem through our actions of our material world. We have to go subatomic. We have to go back to the energy of what is creating things like the border crisis and our government the way it is and the wars that are happening, because everything is just recycling. Pain and suffering is going to recycle until we look at it differently, until we stand up and act differently, until we behave differently, which is the definition of freedom. And the definition of bravery is basically to stand in your own true character. And honor is about respect. So when you look at yourself as a light worker and you look at yourself as an empath, how are you looking at things like the border crisis? How are you looking at the things like the wars and all of our military that are going over to fight for the freedom that is not really, it's a metaphor, right? Everything is a metaphor on the planet because everything is virtual reality. Everything basically means symbolically is basically taking it and seeing what it feels like, because the thought process is going to basically screw you up if you look at something circumstantially. You've got to go subatomic and say, what does this represent? What does the border crisis represent? To me, what it represents is it's perfect timing with this eclipse season that we've got coming in and the retrogrades that are happening, because you know what? It's all about the inner child. The thing that's pulling your heartstrings right now is families being ripped apart, the inner child suffering. It is all about exposing the truth of these families that basically you were raised in, that maybe you were the black sheep, or you were the one that was, you know, oh, my necklace broke. You were the one that wasn't really allowed to be yourself, okay? So that's, to me, what the border crisis represents. And it's also about segregation and separation and pulling love apart, right? Pulling freedom apart. If we were going to look at the border crisis quantumly, we would see that what our job is as light workers and empaths and scientists and preachers and teachers and moms and dads is to say, you know what? This is a cycle that is just going to keep continuing, and it's just a pattern that has manifested. How can I, individually in my own family, with my own inner child, with my own reality, with my own belief systems, how can I take responsibility for the pain and suffering that I'm feeling by watching that? Because everything is a reflection of the relationship that you're having with yourself. Because at the subatomic level, basically how you were created is two atoms came together and created molecules. Those molecules created chemicals. The chemicals created cells. The cells created tissues. The tissues created the organs created you. So if you're going to change anything about you, you've got to go back to your original blueprint. You cannot change it in this action state and go fight for freedom. You see how it defies truth. You can't fight against something that you want. That's resistance. You have to become what it is you want to see. So all of everything that we need to clear collectively inside of our belief systems, in our energy bodies, in our emotional bodies, is going to project outside of us so we can be triggered. If we're not triggered, we cannot locate the trauma. If the PTSD does not become active, we have no idea what we are actually upset about. So what we do is we collectively are going through a huge purge. 2018 is a purge year. So we're purging all of our unconscious pain, all of our unconscious trauma, relationship problems, money problems, health problems, family problems, inner child problems. We're exposing all of it. And we're using everything outside of us as a reflection to feel what is going on the inside. If you were someone who looks at the border crisis and didn't feel anything, you don't have an associated trigger for it, but you would probably have a compassionate response. And your compassionate response would be, you know what, I am going to get right with me and my family, and then I'm going to get right with my neighbors, and then I'm going to get right with my community, and I'm going to get right with everybody. And you could be basically a product of a solution instead of shutting yourself down because you're so sensitive and you're so empathic and you can't stand the pain. And that's what I see a lot of times in our spiritual community, is that what we're viewing on the outside triggers us so viscerally that we shut down our energy. And we want to be of service, but we don't know how. We don't know what we're supposed to do. So the quantum version of this would be to get right with you, because you're the grand mirror that reflects your universe. And if you're having your own little experience based on your memories, your belief systems, your traumas, your griefs, your loves, your dreams, your desires, then only you can change the way that you're seeing the outside. Only you can change the way that you act on the outside of your life, okay? So this is a quantum perspective, which means that you have to go all the way to the root of the problem instead of judging what you're seeing on the front line. Because what you see on the front line is a complete metaphor. It's a quantum entanglement. It's a recycled pattern of the past. What is occurring right now in the United States, which is the fishbowl for the rest of the world to see their collective belief systems, is basically showing you that this is a perfect opportunity for it to be right in your face so that you can feel how you are triggered by it, and then you can take physical and emotional action towards mending it and making it right within yourself. Okay, what can you do to take your power back? And taking your power back is not about a fight, it's about awareness. The more aware you are of how the whole game is outlined, it puts you into a place of power. It puts you into a place of certainty. It puts you into a place of, I can rewrite my life. And if I can rewrite my life and 50 other people rewrite their lives, would the world change? Or do I take my physical body and I go take action with all my negative belief systems inside of me, and I go stand on the front line for something that I don't know what is actually happening? Because if you take your negative belief systems to the front line of any war, you're going to manifest exactly what you expect to manifest because of your own belief systems of the world is not fair, you know, the war is evil, our government is sick, all of these things. When you believe that, you're basically saying that the micro and the macro of your own universe is out of alignment. So what I teach in our quantum university, basically, which is transcendence, is basically all the responsibility, the ability to respond, is on the individual, which means I take personal responsibility for the reflections that I'm projecting and pulling back towards me, which means what I see in you, I can find in me. What I see outside of me, I can find inside of me. And I can work on that trigger within me, and I can release the patterns that are a vibrational match to what I'm seeing outside of me. Because really, this last year, I have been doing nothing but working to heal the inner child. So isn't the border crisis a perfect metaphor of it's time for us to look at the broken families and the separated freedom and the pulled apart inner child within yourselves? And the only thing that's actually going to get you feeling emotional is to actually witness something on the outside of you that is going to have you emotional, give you emotional response, because you've numbed or disassociated from yourself so deeply that you literally project outside of you something that you can get triggered by to have new awareness of what's going on the inside of you. Okay? So that's the quantum perspective of the border crisis. That's also the quantum perspective of 9/11, the quantum perspective of all these shootings that are happening at the schools and everywhere around us. It is the quantum perspective of separation. It is the quantum perspective of judgment. It is the quantum experience of war. So what is war? Is all a macro of the micro of the war within. When we heal the war within, we show up differently to what's outside of us. We don't unwillingly give away our power because we know exactly who we are and we know the power is inside of us. And the only ammunition, and I say this in every second Sunday since the beginning of time, is love wins. Now, what is love? Love is the unconditional process of acceptance. That means whatever is happening is for our benefit. It is a learning process. It is the ability for us to love more, share more, be more brave, be more courageous, be more forthright, be more honest with yourself, be more honest with the people that you love with as far as who you choose to be in this time and space. Because the world is shifting. Everybody knows it. I'm not saying anything that you guys don't already know, because now that the grand light has been turned on and the whole planet is waking up, we're waking up through the triggers. We're not waking up through the lullabies. We're waking up through the triggers of things like the border crisis and all of these things that are happening, because it's pushing your buttons, it's pushing you to be more aware, it's pushing you to be more aligned, and it's pushing you to take action. Okay, and the third phase of awakening, which is where we are right now as a light worker collective, is we are in the third awakening of demonstration, which means it is time for us to act. It is time for us to purge. It is time for us to let go. We cannot continue to fill our cup and not express it. We'll become overloaded. There's one thing about thought. When you have a thought, and it's a big thought, a bad thought, a happy thought, a sad thought, without physical action of the thought, it recycles. And it starts to spin and it starts to communicate to all of your organs, because a thought, basically, is two atoms come together and it becomes form. So now a thought that isn't expressed becomes something, which is a thought form. So if I just think my whole life and I study my whole life and I read my whole life and I watch YouTube my whole life, but I don't physically express any of this stuff that I'm learning, basically what I'm doing is recycling knowledge, and wisdom is when I take action. So what I am recommending to my groups and my classes and my students is to express your thought, which means speak it, sing it, dance it, yell it, scream it, punch it, do something to express the thoughts outside of you so they stop moving in that recycled loop. because it's time for us to break patterns. If we're going to get out of the quantum entanglement with the slavery cycle of Earth, we have to stop being slaves. We individually, I need to stop being a slave of my own mind. I need to stop being a slave of my relationships. I need to stop being a slave in my family. I need to stop being a slave to my own addictions or my own worries or my own behaviors that are out of alignment. That is something that I can do to break the collective slavery process of the matrix, which is the Earth game that we're playing here. You see how all the responsibility is going to fall back on the individual that is aware. The awareness is where you have to take responsibility for yourself, just like I have to take responsibility for myself. Okay? So as we move into this eclipse season, this first eclipse that we're going to have is going to be the lunar eclipse. And that's going to really, it's emotional. So it's going to pull the rest of the emotions out. Okay? It's going to pull it up and out. And then when we get into the solar eclipse, it's going to like phase it forward. So it's almost like feminine is the emotional side, and the action side of this solar is going to push it forward, which means it's a perfect time for you guys to purge, to rest, to recalibrate, to reconnect. It's the retrograde, the recycled. This is the month where you can take stock and look at July 4th and say, okay, well, we got a collective agreement that the July 4th represents independence. Where do I need to be independent from my old belief systems, from my own addictions, from my own lack of respect for myself, right? And with that, we really open up a huge fall that can come in for you to be able to basically have your cup emptied of all your old belief systems, have higher self integrated back into the physical body, because again, movement is all about a solid relationship with your body. When you move your body in coordination with your thought, feelings, and ideas, you become one with yourself. You become one. So when you command the body and then the body behaves through the command of what you're saying or thinking or feeling, you are moving into alignment with your body. When you don't do that and you think your way around and you order people around outside of you, or you pull things inside of you, you're basically battery operated. But when you get into sync with your physical body and you start acting out your thoughts and feelings, then what happens is you become one. And I'm not saying that all of your thoughts and feelings are going to be pure. They're not going to be the best thoughts. You're not going to have the best energy stored at your cellular levels, because you are a byproduct of the collective. So, but what I am saying is it's acted out, not necessarily on your spouse or your best friend or your loved ones or your kids, but go on a walk and act it out. Punch a punching bag and act it out. Cry yourself a river with some beautiful music. Write someone a letter and burn it. Have the imaginary conversations, but actually speak them. Right? Write them. Get it out of your body, because this energy, this Chiron energy, is about the wounded warrior. So it has the ability to, for you, who is the wounded warrior, to basically purge yourself out. And then the Mercury is going to be kind of like that fire that's going to just burn it out, and it's going to help you get angry, because below anger is grief. And that's where we really need to we need to purge. And that's what's being triggered with things like the border crisis, is old grief. We've got to get all the way down to the vibrational base point, which is basically anger, fear, and grief. And we've got to get all the grief outside of our body and purge it. And if we keep covering it up, then we manifest things like the border crisis, and we manifest children dying, and we manifest wars. But if we can get down to our own grief levels and we can expose it. Remember, the true definition of love is acceptance. So if I could just accept my grief, if I could just accept my broken heart, if I could just accept the fact that I'm choosing my own reality, I created my life, I created my parents, I created everything I see, I created the nemesis that's fighting against me right now, that I created everything, and I can accept it, then what happens is I just became the alchemist. I just basically brought light to my own dark. And by accepting myself, then it's easier for me to accept you. And it's easier for me to accept others. And it's easier for me to accept what we've created here. Because basically what we have created here is a lack of awareness. We've created a lack of personal responsibility, and we've given over our responsibility to everyone else. And when they don't act the way we want them to act, then we get angry and we get upset. But again, anger is still covering up grief. We're covering up those original broken hearts. Now, this last little message is for quantum light workers. And if you don't know if you are a quantum light worker or not, then when I say this, it will resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, then you're not a quantum light worker, which is totally perfect and fine. But my message to light workers that are really drawn to quantum mechanics, okay, is that if you understand everything is about cause and effect, and everything is about focus, and everything is about consciousness, and everything is about creation, then there is no way that we as light workers would attract at a rooted place horrible childhoods. We had to create horrible childhoods from some other earlier similar vibrational alignment. Okay? So this is out there. So a lot of light workers are like, well, my parents, you know, they sucked and they didn't love me and I wasn't allowed to be myself. And that's still the story that they're telling. But I'm going to tell you a story that I've discovered by working with thousands of people all around the world. And it's funny because these people are not just in America. I've got students in 106 countries. And the interesting thing about taking someone into regression and really finding the root of why they attracted the parents that they attracted will blow your mind. Because again, if we're in the karmic phase of the ascension, which means karmic resolve, we're here to resolve karmic energy that we've created since the day we left source energy. And since the day we left source energy, we began to separate. Let me have this experience, let me have this experience, let me have this experience, let me have this experience. And a soul, right, does not know the true essence of any experience unless they've had both sides of the experience. Both sides of the experience. Two atoms make one experience, right? One molecule. So two atoms, this experience, come together to have a physical experience of duality, so I can see basically who I am from this experience, and I can try to basically bring my consciousness into awareness of alignment of those two experiences. So if I'm coming from all different places in the universe from a fractal consciousness, and I have brought myself down into the slowest piece of density, then what I'm doing here is I'm resolving all conflict within my vibration, all out of alignment sequences, all fractals of my unawareness, which is what lovingly we call ego. And then we have the higher self. So I have the unevolved, the dark side of myself, and I have the light side, the higher perspective of myself. And then I have the body that acts as basically the center point, holding the two aspects of myself together. So if I'm here to purify my entire universal karmic relationship with the universe in one lifetime, it would make sense that I would pick relationships early on to set the tone of the exact triggers and the exact patterns and the exact suffering that are uncleared and unleft, so that I could ascend back to light. So it's almost like you chose Earth, we chose Earth as our grand karmic melting pot. So everything that we're here to clean up is basically acted out for us so that we can get triggered and we can become aware of ourselves and we can clear and love ourselves through it, through acceptance. Okay? So what if Earth was actually an amends project? What if it was a redemption process? What if we were here to actually basically clean up our mess? So some of you, thousands of you that I have coached over the last 8 years, a lot of you I have taken back into regression points of Atlantis. And a lot of us were ascended masters, right? You've all heard that we've got these 12 helix of DNA, and then when they're fully activated, we'll become light beings. But Earth, you know, humans only have 2 helix of DNA activated, and that basically the 2 helixes, one is I am, and the second one is I procreate. which would create the perfect slaves. So light workers who fully ascended but got off planet before it turned into slavery, a lot of you have returned. A lot of you are reincarnated to clean up the mess that we created. Somebody asked me the other day, Jess, why don't you take vacations? Why don't you go like 4 weeks and just disappear? You're teaching 3 times a week, you're coaching every day, you're building workshops, you're getting ready to world travel. And my answer to that is I'm here for a mission. Yes, I love my family. Yes, I love my friends. Yes, I love being here. But at the same time, every single day that I wake up, I remember why I'm here. And I remember that I would never create a problem for myself where I didn't create the solution. And if I created the problem for myself early on in life, then it was usually a byproduct of the bigger mission that I was here to create. And I'm here basically to clean up a mess. I'm here that I've come back to basically help clean up the mess that created the slavery process in the beginning. No one is a victim in the universe. Victimization doesn't exist. It's a belief system. So if I am just cause and effect, if I'm a focal point of consciousness, which has a negative and a positive perspective, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create both sides of that experience for myself. And I'm going to incarnate into a family that doesn't know how to love me and doesn't know how to see me. And it's going to teach me to devalue myself. It's going to teach me to not love myself. It's going to teach me that the world is a scary place. It's going to teach me that I'm a slave. And my objective, my mission, is to remember who I am regardless of all of that. And the deep, 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 deep embedded guilt that you feel at a quantum level has nothing to do with this lifetime. It has nothing to do with this particular experience. It is here. Light workers are here to clean up a mess, not to save the world. We're here to clean up a mess because when we were completely enlightened, we were genetic experts. We built beautiful weapons. We built beautiful worlds. We built beautiful things, and not for the contrast of war, ever. Because the creative child only wants to experience, what could I do? How could I make this bigger? How could I make this better? How could I make this type of genetic experiment? How could I make this type of weapon? How could I make this? It was coming from a state of curiosity. It was not coming from a state of malicious intent. It was basically brought forth from us to see if we could do it. And if you look at the early 80s, where the indigos and the light workers started showing back up in the late 30s, and you look at the 80s, that's when all the genetics experiments started. That's when everybody was using technology to see what they could do. That's when the bombs started getting bigger and more fierce, and they were getting to the point where, you know what, we could blow the planet up really easy with the technology that we have, and then everything shifted, didn't it? Everything shifted, and this beautiful ascension process really went into full force source, because you know what? A lot of us are returning to basically clear up the mistakes that we've made. And I know that this particular second Sunday is probably the most controversial one that I've ever done. But I'm at a place right now where I have worked with so many thousands of people who have taken me through their experience of Atlantis, where they remember being part of the experiment, part of the demise, that they're still carrying a cellular, atomic guilt and shame in their frequency that makes them dim their light. Okay? So that message is for you. If that resonates with you, what I want you to do is I want you to look at Earth as an amends project. And I want you to wake up every single day and say, you know what? If I've created any part of this in any lifetime, in any simulation, I'm going to do everything that I can to be part of the solution, which means I'm going to become brave and I'm going to have honor and I'm going to share my freedom, because that's what my DNA is the DNA of freedom. It is the DNA within you that is love and freedom, okay? And your mind needs to be purged in order for you to be able to access your DNA, because your mind has gotten so big and so out of control that it's basically numbed your ability to take action. So it's time for you to start feeling and stop thinking so much, because if you really feel into this, you'll feel the truth within you that you're not a victim here. You were never victimized. You needed those parents, you needed those experiences, you needed that trauma, you needed that abuse, you needed that suffering, because it pushed you into your awareness. And everything that happens on the planet is pushing us into awareness, pushing us back to love, pushing us to remember who we are. And astrology is lining up perfectly for that. so that we can just follow the trails of how we feel, not how we think, not what the news says, not what the neighbor says, but what your own metaphor is inside. My advice for you is, for the rest of your life, anything that triggers you, anything, take a moment, go inside, and say, what is reflecting inside of me? Because circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters, which means nothing outside of you has a negative charge to it. The only negative charge of what is happening outside of you is how you receive the information, how you receive. And you're saying, well, how do I not receive children dying as bad information? The thing is if we looked at everything as a game, and we looked at every being that decided to come and be a player here for us to awaken, they came here to be an example, a lesson, a roadmap, a distraction, then even beautiful, enlightened soul children would come to the planet and say, you know what, I love you so much that I am going to act out this abuse in front of you, or I'm going to die in front of you, so you can remember who you are, because the global universal game is love. And you have to remember that death is not death. It's a change of frequency. It's a change of perspective. It is actually a release. And there are thousands and thousands and millions and millions and millions and millions of souls that sign up to play that part so that their death can have a global experience, a global experience. And I may change my ways because I watched an innocent child die. I might change the way I parent. I might change the way I see myself. Is it bad? Is it good? In the game of quantum, everything is just perspective. Everything is just a game. Okay? All right, so there was one other thing that I was going to say, and I'm not sure which point that was, but I have a workshop going on right now in my Tika Academy, and I am actually teaching people how to channel their higher selves. And the reason why is because ego has been driving your body for most of your life. You were taught that your personal responsibility was to shut down yourself. It was to dim your light. It was to don't dream, don't think, don't feel, don't cry. And so your default program inside of you is usually still running off of that smaller, unaware version of yourself. And you'll know you're in that part of yourself when you're judging, when you're blaming, when you're shaming, when you're humiliated, when you're lacking gratitude, when you feel alone, when you feel trapped, when you feel enslaved, when you don't feel free. You are channeling that chronic part of your personality. And in order for you to see the quantum perspective or the higher perspective or the bigger perspective, you've got to channel through the eyes of the part of you that has never really experienced any of those things, that remains the focal point of your divine mission, divine love, divine gratitude, divine perfection, and learn to channel that through the physical body, because that's what's going to heal your body. That's what's going to activate your DNA. That's what's going to give you the immortal strength that you remember deep down inside that you once had. It's going to change your genetic structure, and it's going to change the way that you see the world. It's going to change the way you see things like the border crisis, and it's going to change the way that you see your friends and family. You're going to move into a state of gratitude, and you're going to go, wow, thank you so much for acting out that particular virtual reality moment so you could trigger the shit out of me and basically remind me of the work that I need to do within. And then when that work is done, project myself outwardly and be a physical example of that work that I have done on myself. Okay, so that's really, really, really where we are collectively. And now this is a quantum perspective. As you go down and you phase into density, if I were going to talk to someone who didn't understand quantum mechanics and didn't understand that they were basically just subatomic energy focusing through imagination, they would look at this and they would debate me and debate me and debate me, which was an awesome opportunity that I had last week to do an interview with, and you guys got to check it out. It's Enlighten Up podcast, and I was interviewed by 4 people, 2 of them which were colleagues, and right in alignment with the quantum mechanics, and then 2 of them were skeptics. One was an atheist and one was just a skeptic. And so for about 50 minutes to an hour, 4 people interviewed me. And it was really interesting as an empath and as someone who can kind of see into people's realities, what everybody was experiencing during the interview with me. And the two skeptics, what I noticed about the first one who kind of attacked and charged at me as far as there's no God and what are you saying and you can't heal cancer and all these things, what I was feeling inside of him is that he was angry with the idea of God or light in the first place. And so I was resembling truth as far as light, and it was basically triggering an old wound within him. So he was attacking me, which was beautiful because it was not an attack from me. It was basically a call for love. Everything is a call for love, okay? So I remember what I was going to say. So I did a class, I don't know, Frank would know, probably over 6 or 7 months ago called The Correct Way to Hold Space. And I'm going to release this academy class that we did in the university to the public on Tuesday night after I go live for our energy update, because all week I have been getting emails and feedback and instant messages from people who are saying, you know what, I'm shining my light, I'm doing exactly what you told me to, I'm stepping into the truth, I'm stepping into my light, and I am getting attacked, and I am getting judged, and I'm getting haters, and this is scary. And so instead of me doing another 2-hour teaching when it's already archived, I'm going to release it, because in order to be a light worker, you're not always the hero that's out rescuing. What does it mean to be a light worker when you're being attacked? What does it mean to be a light worker and an empath when someone is literally attacking your parenting or your choices, your sexual choices, or your physical choices, or your lifestyle, or attacking your past? When do we become light workers in that reality? And this is why we dim our light. And I always say, what happens is when you try to prove your light, you dim your light. When you try to prove your light, you dim your light. And what I have been experiencing, especially over the last couple of years, is every time I level up and grow myself, I get a pile of haters. And it's funny how haters don't attack you personally. They attack the things that you love. They attack, I'm going to take this from you. I'm going to take this kid away from you. I'm going to take your best friend away from you. I'm going to plant seeds in your best friend's head about you. They never attack you because you know who you are, but they attack the things that you're attached to. And so what I did was I taught this already 6 months ago, this class, about how to deal with that, how to be a true light worker when you're being attacked. Not when your best friend's attacked, not when your work is attacked, when you are being attacked. How do you show up? So it's all in that class. I'm going to release it for free in this group, and it will totally make sense, and it will give you guys some really powerful tools, because when you are a light worker, what that means is that you're there to stand in the light no matter what dark is surrounding you, no matter what dark you're seeing, no matter what dark that is happening, no matter what dark you're feeling. You know that you can find the light inside of you even when you're feeling your own darkness, because your level of evolution has created the gap between the two voices inside of you. So when your ego speaks, your higher self is right there with you to be the light in your own dark. And you have to remember that's the only thing that you need. I have had to become my own mother. I've had to become my own father. I've had to become my own best friend. I've had to become my own role model. And in that part of me, basically what I did was I healed the relationship with myself, my body, and my ego, and my inner child, and now we're a family. And all the rest of my family is now a reflection of the family that I have within me, okay? So I just wanted to leave you guys with that, because I know a lot of you are stepping up. I know a lot of you are building your businesses, and you're out there on the front line. And I commend you, and I honor you, and you are so brave, and you are putting your knowledge into wisdom. You're putting it into action, and you're stepping out. But the next phase of that is having to face those own shadows of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, judgment in your face while you're doing that. And so that's why I'm going to release this video. I think it's about an hour and 30 minutes long, and it will give you every single tool that you will need in the face of your leveling up phases. Okay? All right, so I think if we do have any questions, Suze?
Yep.
Awesome. I just want to let you guys know that I will also be going live Tuesday because there's so much going on right now. We've got planets in retrograde. We've got a new moon coming. I believe it's in Cancer, And Cancer is all about the emotions. So this is a really kind of volatile month where the inner projection is independence. And what is it going to take for you to get independent with yourself, free with yourself, peaceful with yourself, joyful with yourself? And by changing that structure, you change yourself at an atomic level. And when you change yourself at an atomic level, your entire reality will change around you. And you will begin to see the viewpoint of the virtual reality game of Earth extremely different. Okay? You'll be able to hold space in a whole new way. You'll be able to see that every trigger that is happening is the most important experience that you could have. It's the messenger, it's the guide, it's the piece of the puzzle that you need in order for you to be able to see inside of yourself. Because the reflection is the inside of you, right? Law of attraction is secondary to law of reflection. Reflection, ignore attraction. Reflection, acceptance, no attraction, right? So if we want to attract more purified manifestations, including things like our government and our world and our food and our medicine, we've got to be the solution, and we've got to take personal responsibility for our own viewpoint on reality. Because if I'm not afraid of what's happening, then no one can control me. If I look at everything that's happening at a macro level from my micro perspective, I know that all is divine, it's all in perfect order, and that these crises is what's going to help wake up the rest of the planet. So we stop making these choices and behaving in fear and shutting ourselves down. We can now stand up. Okay. All right. So I think we're good. If there's no questions, Suze. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I want you to just enjoy the holiday. Obviously, if you're in the United States, you're enjoying this holiday. But if you're outside looking into our reality show of the fishbowl that is the United States, I want you to look at what it represents versus who we are. I want you to look at the metaphor of the United States and the fact that even though it was designed on freedom, we took our freedom by taking someone else's freedom. And that is what's usually taught in our families, isn't it? Is in order for me to be free, someone else has to not be free. And we design relationships that way. That's why a lot of us are afraid to have relationships, because, okay, I move into this relationship, then I lose myself. Then I lose myself, and then I'm going to be traumatized, and I'm going to attack you. It's the macro and the micro of our whole exact relationship. So the first relationship was the one between you and you that got separated, and then separation was created. Okay? All right, so I will see you guys all Tuesday night at 8:15 Central Time for the energy forecast that's coming in on the new full moon, and I'll be able to go into a little bit more of the astrology on that. And then right after that free at 8:15, I'm going to have my team release that holding space class for you guys. And then I'm going to hop over into my subscription group, and I'm going to do our live channeled Q&A that I do every single week in that group. All right.
Where will you see us on Tuesday?
On the, where will we see? Okay, I will be on this group Tuesday at 8:15. It is the Jessica Alstrom Quantum Life Community Group, and that will be live at 8:15 Central Time. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you then. I'm ending.